I'm now joined by researcher at the Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs at Unisa, Mo Afrika Sipho Mantula. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. We know that Africa is not a monolith, but if we had to describe the state of the continent 57 years after the establishment of that AU, what would you say that is?
Jumbo Africa, daughter of the soil, and to the viewers, it is very important that if one is to understand the 1963 journey that was undertaken by the founding fathers and the mothers of African Union or Organization of African Unity, there were some strides, but you will understand that compared to 1963 to 2002, when South Africa constituted the OAU to AU, there were some strides that were made. We had NEPAD, we had African peer review, and then we had the 10 African Parliament that was set up in Gauteng province. So you can see that there have been some strides, but there are still some pockets of challenges that Africa still needs young leadership. Africa still needs to be free from colonial interferences, because with this coronavirus pandemic and with this conflict that we are seeing in the continent, then one can see that you still have a colonial interference since 1963 until now.
Mm-hmm. What needs to be a fundamental shift, because this is a conversation that is ongoing and sometimes can appear cyclical, in order to move away from the challenges that you've just raised?
You know, one will say what needs to be done. There is a radical shift that needs to be done from education. Hence today, your insight, as it was said, we don't even recognize this Africa Liberation Day as a very critical day that Fanon raised the question of the pitfalls of national consciousness. Now, if you think of what should be done, if we don't ingrain Africa Liberation Day into our curriculum, if we don't look at our African media coverage of Africa, this is what must be done on a daily basis, of looking back at the continent with a possibility of giving it a positive image. Because with this COVID-19 again, what should be done is the issue again of dealing with the health infrastructure, is the issue of dealing with our curriculum at universities, is the third issue to deal again with corruption by African heads of state and African leaders, because that is one of the viruses and the plague that has been troubling Africa even post-1994. Because you will remember that even South Africa, as the chair, joined OAU in 1994 on the 23rd of May, and it even made us to be the young kid on the block. But at the same time, South Africa was facing a mammoth task to deal with the Rwanda genocide, DRC. But now we are having new challenges: the Mozambique conflict, the Southern Sudan conflict, the conflict in Somalia, and many other pockets of conflicts that are still in the continent. And now that's where you need the youth, you need the role of women to be emphasized, because you cannot have African unity and African solutions without bringing the youth and the women.
You speak about the conflicts. One of the agendas for 2020 was, of course, silencing the guns. And in the wake of COVID-19, that's almost been postponed to a later date. When we look at the larger plans of the African Union, Agenda 2063 is there, that includes prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development areas. We don't know how long coronavirus is going to last for. We don't know how it's going to affect us on the continent as a whole. So are these 2063 goals also going to be pushed out, and are we going to be seeing a lag in those as well?
My dear sister, the 7 aspirations, they will be fulfilled if we can be very careful that we don't only talk about silencing the guns, but we have to silence the minds that are behind these guns and create a conducive cultural and economic environment in the continent. Remember that silencing of guns and ending conflict, it was mooted in the Zambia-Lusaka roadmap in 2016, and it has taken time, because you will find that even the issue of conflicts, they are around natural resources once more, and other conflicts are being driven with an interest by ethnic groups in different countries. A conflict that we see in Cameroon that is hardly covered by media between the North and the South. A conflict that we see it is going on in Central African Republic. A conflict that is going on in Southern Sudan. So you can find that even the peace agreements that are being signed in Africa are signed in the hotels, and those peace agreements are not even signed by Africans with a clear conscience and a thinking that who is writing these peace agreements, who is dotting the line, and who are the real mediators in Africa, because one will assume that the role of women, the role of elderly, senior citizens should be the mediators in this conflict. But like I've said, my dear sister, conflict in Africa has become part of business to other multinationals. So it is important, our chairperson this afternoon, if we can even focus on the issue, even understanding that corona as well, it is another biochemical warfare that is facing the globe, but it is not ravaging Africa so far. But Africa should be ready and should stand by its force of health, should stand by its force in terms of knowledge and its traditional medicine, or one can say indigenous medicine, how to combat all these things. And the issue of the military force in Africa. Why, when you are even combating coronavirus in this country, we still have the military and the police using force and using weapons? That's where the silencing of guns must include the disarmament of weapons in the continent.
Advocate Sipho Mantula joining us there, sharing his views on coronavirus, the African Union and more. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News.